Good evening, good evening, good evening. Dumela, Sawubona, Sakpase, Namaste, Abshin, Dubra Ota, Assalamu alaikum, Hotep, peace and blessings. This is Doriel Inez Larrier of Larrier's Education and Resource Network, where I plant seeds to help you grow. And welcome to another episode of The Digital Couch. A new class is in session. This is episode 9. So, welcome to episode 9 of A New Class is in Session. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And hear this. Hear this. How is it that some people who are able to go into a store can't go into a store without being harassed? Well, one day back about 8 years ago, approximately August 2013, one of the billionaires of our, not just the country, but of the world, Oprah Winfrey. Some of you know the story, but some of you may not. So let me just take you a little bit back so we can sort of frame the conversation tonight. Oprah Winfrey says that she was the victim of racism on a recent trip to Switzerland when a shop assistant refused to show her a handbag because it was too expensive. Well, Winfrey was in Zurich for Tina Turner's wedding in late July when she left her hotel alone and popped into an upscale handbag shop. Now, she says that, of course, she doesn't mention the name, but of course we find out later what it is. She says she didn't have her eyelashes on, but she was in full Oprah Winfrey gear. She had a little Donna Karan skirt on and her sandals, but obviously the Oprah Winfrey Show is not known in Zurich at that time, but of course it is now. So of course, now those of you who know this story, just work with me here. She says she goes into a store and she says to the woman, "Excuse me, may I see that bag over your head?" And she says to me, "No, it's too expensive." Winfrey says she asked again to see the bag, a $38,000 crocodile skin number by Tom Ford. And the woman again refused, saying, "No, no, 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 you don't want to see that one. You want to see this one because that one will cost too much and you will not be able to afford that." Of course, Sister Girl did not know who she was talking to. Well, Winfrey says she asked the final time to see the bag. "One more time I tried, quote unquote, but I really do just want to see that one." And she said, "Well, I don't want to hurt your feelings." And I said, "Okay, thank you so much. You're probably right. I can't afford it," and walked out of the store. Now, of course, we know what happened later. The woman, the salesperson finds out who it actually was. They try to cover it up and they try to say, "Oh, we weren't really just trying to deny you to look at the bag. We wanted to show you another bag that was made out of..." You know what this is all about. And this is the topic of the story tonight. It is known as consumer racism, or as we're going to discuss tonight, shopping while black and brown. Well, tonight on the Digital Couch, I have the author of the just sold out, because the book was released like a week ago and is already on back order. This is Dr. Michelle Peaches Dunlap. She's the author of Retail Racism, Shopping While Black and Brown in America. And she is the author of this text. And we're going to talk to her tonight about how the book came about. Yes, thank you. People already dropping the comments that I laid out earlier today, that all money is green money, but black and brown money gets profiled and targeted. So let's welcome Dr. Michelle Peaches Dunlap.
Hello. It's so nice to be here and to see you. Thank you for having me, Doriel.
Yay, thank you. Okay, so you know what we do on the Digital Couch. Now, I have a number of different communities watching. I have a personal business and then YouTube. We have a couple of different communities watching. And so I need all of my communities to do what we do best. And that is like, comment, and share, because sharing is caring, of course. And this is going to be a very safe spot. Okay, this safe spot, as it always is in the Digital Couch, because, you know, we have our tea. You know, some people will take notes. I need my string. Okay, with the Black woman mug. Hello. Love it. So we have some amazing communities. We have our Connecticut community in the house. We have a number of people from Conn College, and we'll let you know what that's all about. And some actually participants who are in the book are actually watching and participating tonight as well. So I need everybody to be part of my stream team. My stream team, you know what you do. If there's a comment that resonates with you here, drop it in the stream so we can respond to it. If there's a question, drop it in the stream so we can respond to it. And also tag anybody who needs to hear this. Tag anybody who you know has probably been a victim of consumer racism. Or even if it's you, you can sort of give a hand raise or what have you, a like or a comment or even a warm hug, because it needs to be recognized, it needs to be said, and it needs to be acknowledged that we are not alone. We're not alone. And there is something that can be done about it. There's a couple of things that we'll talk about at the end of here. So first, let me let you know who this woman is on my couch. Y'all ready for the comments? Yep. Listen, you ready for the accolades? I just want to see you at like a formal gathering where you get to wear all of your hoods. How about that? Okay, let me be professional. So Dr. Dunlap she teaches Intro to Human Development, Adolescent Development, Children and Families in a Multicultural Society, Social and Personality Development, and Basic Applied Statistical Analysis. Let me just say for the record, I didn't do very well in that class. I'm sorry. Probably if I had her, I would have done better. Anyway, but she's had more than 40 publications, written books, journal articles, chapters, and essays about her research and experiences involving community service learning settings, intergroup relations, and for this particular conversation, perceptions and misperceptions of African American child rearing, and most recently, Black and minority bodies, shopping, and other consumer marketplace experiences. A graduate of Wayne State University with distinction and high honors in psychology, received a doctoral fellowship from the Florida Education Fund, master's and doctor of philosophy degrees in social psychology from the University of Florida in 93. She has currently served on the faculty of human development at Connecticut College, go Camels, since 1994, and also served as the chair of the Department of Faculty Liaison to the Connecticut College Children's Program. So she has a lot of experience, not just in child development, human development, but also social psychology. The last thing I want to mention that is extremely important is that she sits on a number of boards, but the two that are very key in my mind for this conversation is the National Association for Women in Psychology, okay, the Society for the Psychological Study of Social Issues, and last but not least, Brown University's College University Engagement Initiatives. Why is this all important? Because when we are having a conversation about human development, about social psychology, about social justice issues, about consumer economics, and where people who are considered marginalized, where they fit, where they stand, how they can walk on the door, how they can sit, how they can bring their dollars, their credit cards, their coins to receive service. This person right here knows all about it. So that's why we're talking about retail racism tonight, shopping while Black and brown in America. Thank you so much for the people who are here and who are sharing. I really appreciate it. Dr. Dunlap, why in the world was this so crucial to write? Why? And how did you get these people to say, yes, I will tell you my story?
Okay, so I was just thinking about something else before I say that. There were a couple of those boards you mentioned that I don't sit on anymore. So
represented.
I have, yes, I have sat on those boards, and I do the board rotations, and so forth. So yes. But anyway, what got me going on this was an experience that I had about 26 years ago, where I observed a beloved relative in my family, a child, experience retail racism. I saw this loved one experience something that I felt that most children don't experience. Children who are 7 and 8 years old, they're learning from trial and error. They make mistakes. They do things that they shouldn't do. And so out at the mall, this young child did something that he shouldn't have done. He picked up an item, 2 packs of sports cards. and attempted to take those sports cards and was seen. I mean, he did it very obviously. You know, he didn't have the skills of stealing, you know, like a thief would, you know, a real thief would have. So he did it in a very naive and very obvious way. And thank goodness I was nearby, because they said if I hadn't been nearby, I was just a few feet away, that he would have been transported quite a distance to some juvenile detention facility. But anyway, the mall security was called, the police were called, the state troopers were there. We were surrounded by police. It was just a horrible experience, especially for the child. So this loved one, I saw him literally come out of his body. His body was there, but
Yeah.
he was somewhere else. He was so fearful. Anyway, that was an experience that, and he became case number blah blah blah, you know, in the system.
Uh,
And
so
that
they actually prosecuted it?
uh, he became a case in the system. Yes, he became a case in the
They have in
system.
mind.
Yeah. Now, yeah, with children, sometimes they do things like they'll say, "Okay, we're going to kind of let this go if this child doesn't get into any other trouble, but if he does, this is going to reemerge," you know, and things like that. So it was no slap on the wrist. It was
Right.
nothing like that. Like, it was no talking to or anything like that. It was like straight into the criminal justice system. Okay. Thank goodness he didn't actually end up in some facility that
Right.
night, that I was able to get him home to his parents that same evening. So it was an incident that stuck with me, even though it was like 26 years ago. It was an incident that stuck with me that I've never been able to forget. And um, just remembering the look on this child's face, remembering the fear, the trauma, the seeing the preschool to prison pipeline trying to play itself out right there, right before my eyes. And I really wondered that this was a beautiful brown child, you know, full of innocence, full of you know, the sparkle that we see in so
Right.
many children that age. And I really, really wondered, is this what most children go through? You know, children who are not brown and black, you know, do they go through this? Do they experience this? And those kinds of questions stuck with me, and I just couldn't let it go. And so God began to give me a vision over the years, over the decades. I'm a very spiritual person, and I began to get a vision for this project, how to do it, how to carry it out on the terms that were given to me visually, not somebody else's terms. So that's a whole nother story in itself, how we're rewarded for doing things the way someone who isn't even living this, the way that
Right.
they think it should be done, you know. But anyway, this was a labor of love. It was my way of coping with something that I never could really let go of, because that sent some messages to that child at a very young age about his worth, about his character. Just it sent a lot of messages. A lot of damage control had to be done, I believe, by his parents, by his community, so that he didn't internalize the message that you're a criminal, you are a crook, you are a thief. And those are the kinds of things that were being said. And I talk more about it in the preface of the book, the kinds of messages that were being given to that child, and messages given to that child's parents when they try to have conversations with the store owner and the store
Right.
managers later about it. So that's the preface. I talk about that because that was my motivation for the book. I'm way past tenure. I'm way past full professor. I'm looking at I'm heading towards the end of my career. So I didn't need it for my career. You know, royalties are not something that any person would, try to depend on. So it wasn't for financial gain or anything like that. This was purely a project of the heart, based on that experience that I could never let go.
So let's get into how the book is framed, and let me sort of say thank you already to the people. Shout out to again the camels in the building. You know exactly what I mean. All the Connecticut College.
Camel.
We
Hi,
see
camels.
That's right. We see former staff and former or alum of Connecticut College. Thank you, who graciously introduced me to Dr. Michelle Dunlap after I had left the building and left the yard. And they said, Jorel, you have to meet this woman who is, and at that time, changing the I guess the framework of the major that I lived with and based my life on. And I was like, how are they changing from like child development to human development? But then when they said, no, when you meet Dr. Dunlap, you're going to change your mind. And as soon as I met her, I was like, I'm good. I'm okay. And literally,
It was a long time ago, wasn't it? How many
okay.
years
So,
ago? That was like, oh, okay. Well, it was.
no, for the
It was
record,
still
and I'm happy to
90s.
say
It wasn't in the
it
new
was about
millennium. It wasn't
no, no,
in
no.
the
It was
new.
about 30 years ago. It was about
Well,
30
close
years ago.
to it, if not 30 years ago, close
That's
to it.
right. That's right. So we have grown better and wiser. How about that? So
Mhm.
in this conversation, I'm so happy to have been able to review the text, to see it. And yes, it is on back order. So those of you who have not gotten your book, Retail Racism, Shopping While Black and Brown in America, please go to Amazon, get your name on the list for the back order so that when the next set is released, you can be the first ones to get it. It is an amazing, amazing text. So it's broken down into basically 4 categories, and each category has a series of let's call them short stories or vignettes, or basically interviews with people based on the overarching like subtopic.
Mhm.
So there are 4 topics.
Mhm.
The first one is called monitoring. The
Mhm.
second topic is inequities.
Mhm.
The third topic is called traumas. And the
Mhm.
fourth topic is philosophy.
Philosophies.
Right.
Mhm.
Now, a little author's craft. Each of the stories within the 4 topics also start with the same letter of the topic. Now, for a wordsmith like myself, I said, you did that. You have to get the book. You have to get the book and see this. But let's sort of get into the heart of this. So
And that was
also
the vision. That
that
vision. Little things like that. Mhm.
thank you for the
That
vision.
came from God. Mhm.
Thank you for the visit. So now, interspersed with these 4 subtopics are there's the introduction actually starts with a poem or maybe 2. Some of the poems were written by Dr. Dunlap. Some of them were, crafted by other people whose works are within the text. And then there's
Mhm.
a sort of like I would almost say like a textbook, sociological or social psychological, if I'm saying it right, philosophy that introduces the topic. Um, and so I am going to, in this conversation, yes, the sound that you hear, people, is Dr. Dunlap's dog.
That's
So
my
we
dog.
will start
She
the
is having
conversation.
a fit, and all the noise is this toy right here that she just will not let go of. Okay? All right, I'm putting it up here. Go. Bye.
It's
Okay.
her. But this is what we do. This is part of Rona life, everybody. It's quite all right. This is how we do. We work from home. So I'm going to I'm going to lift one particular. Oh, okay. If that works,
I have
let's
to
see.
put my headphones in.
Okay, let's see if
Do
that
you
works.
mind if I do?
Go right ahead.
I love these headphones. So
So I'm going to lift one of the. So can you hear?
Testing,
Beautiful,
testing. Okay.
beautiful. So I'm going to lift uh, one of a part of the introduction that really, really grabbed at my heart. Now, this is from the inequities section, and the title of this particular interview is called Indicted. Indicted. This is a story about Graham, and Graham is a man actually from India, and he speaks of his story. But the introduction is what is so poignant. There are experiences that members of minoritized groups have in the marketplace that seem to be geared toward asserting to us that we are outsiders who do not belong and that we have no control in the situation. If we question this, we may be seen as a threat, or we may even have security or the police be called on us. Social critics speak on the calling of police on people of color as a power move to keep us in check when we dare to question the service we have received, our charges or bills, our coupons, and so on. There seems to be a fear of Black people, especially, but also of other people of color who dispute these things. Parenthetically, can I get somebody to say amen? Because a number of us have actually been through it. Let me continue. When people of color get upset as a result of the powerful ways that people dismiss somebody in the marketplace, they are rendered as unimportant or invisible, and they have service refused to them. The next step is to assert one's power by calling security or police. Now, a number of people can unfortunately attest to situations like this. Now, those people who are watching, if you're watching live or on the replay, if you have been a victim, and the only way to say it is a victim of any of these assaults on, and they could be emotional assaults, and some of them are actually physical assaults.
Mhm.
If you care to share, you can just drop a number one, and that's okay. If you know of somebody or you have witnessed a verbal, emotional, or physical assault on a Black and brown body as a result of situations like this, whether they be perceived or actualized, you can drop a number two. In this conversation, thank you. I see some ones. Thank you. And actually, we have some people again in the building who are actually in the book, and I do appreciate and thank you for participating and being a vocal presence. The next part of this conversation is going to be a vignette of one of the actually two stories. One story is going to be Finley. So I'll talk about Finley. Thank you so much. Oh, we have people with a one, a two, and a hand raised. Oh, thank you so
Mm.
much. Um, we
My
are we're
heart,
gonna
my heart
all right.
goes out.
So yes, and if anybody while you're hearing these stories, this literally is a moment. First of all, let me do this because I need it.
You know, I'm going to do that too. Okay.
It's a moment. Let
Hmm.
me just say this right here.
Hmm.
These stories in this book, the only way I could say it is it's a whole mood. It's a whole mood. It's similar to watching those of you who grew up in the 70s. It's similar to watching Roots.
Wow, that's intense.
It's similar to watching Roots. When I read this, I literally had moments of my hand starting to shake. I had moments of little palpitations. And no joke, just today, as I was coming home, I'm in one of our favorite stores. I will call it out, Target. I was going to get some light bulbs. Some people saw me doing a live stream right before. I was going to get some light bulbs. All I had in my hand was my phone. That's it. Why was somebody standing around an aisle? I
Mm.
just had a phone in my hand. It was ridiculous. And I said, no. Do they know that I'm coming on to talk about this tonight? Like, really? So, why I bring up Roots, and those of you who are familiar with Roots, if you grew up in the 70s or the 80s, it was every year we sat around the television as a family to, for some, to remember, to some to say, we will not forget, and in some situations, to try to incorporate the conversation, the critical conversation, to our children. Part of this conversation is going to be about how early is too early, to have the conversation so that before we get to a moment like Dr. Michelle Dunlap and her family member, that they had to experience that, and then we had to have the conversation on the back end. So her role in as being a professor of human development and social psychology and child psychology is always like a dance. It's a very delicate dance that we do with our children and with our families around this. So, actually, Dr. Dunlap, why don't you introduce Finley? Tell us the story of Finley.
Okay, so Finley, and of course, these are all pseudonyms, and the pseudonyms are named after actual victims in the marketplace. So Finley comes from the name that I use to name this other character, not a character, a real human being, comes from someone in Detroit who, in I believe around 1992, 1994, his name was Fred Finley, who ended up getting killed in the course of trying to defend his 11-year-old daughter who had stolen a $4 bracelet. So he was placed in a chokehold while he was trying to stick up for his daughter and died in that chokehold. So I use the names of victims from over the years to name the interviewees whom I interviewed. So rather than just using random pseudonyms, I wanted to use names that were very memorable and very meaningful, and that would help to memorialize people who have also had these experiences, and some of them haven't lived to be able to tell their stories. So Finley is his name, one of the interviewees, and a young man who went to a grocery store to return some vitamins. And while he was trying to return those vitamins, he saw a woman returning a rug, a whole rug that, how often do you see rugs even being sold in grocery stores? And this was a grocery store he had grown up in all his life, but in a predominantly white community. And he tries to return these vitamins, and he's given a hard time. So he sees the lady next to him, no receipt. She gets to return this rug, and he's getting a hard time about these vitamins. Then, to make matters worse, he sees the clerk writing his name in a book that he eased over, not only his name, but she had also requested his driver's license. So he looks over to see, what is this book? And he asked her, what is this book? And she's like, never mind, don't worry about it. Well, the book was titled The Book of Robbers, Scammers, and Thieves. Okay. So, he goes through this whole ordeal over these vitamins compared to this rug that he's watching this woman get cash money back. And he's not getting cash. He's being offered some gift card. He's being harassed. His name is being put in some book.
And neither person has the receipt. Neither person has a receipt. He doesn't
Neither
have the
person.
receipt.
Right. Neither person has the receipt, but you're more likely to find vitamins in a grocery store than you are a rug. Okay. So he talks about all of the emotional turmoil, because there's a lot to this ordeal, and all the steps that he took to try to deal with it. I mean, the story for me was just heart-wrenching, that something so simple,
Right.
something so simple that maybe on any other day might not have bothered him as much if it hadn't been for this other customer who's getting these privileges with no questions asked. Compared to him, he's having to show his driver's license. They didn't have to show their driver's license.
Right.
He's having to get his name put in this awful book. They didn't have to get their name put in an awful book. So that kind of stuff just it eats away at you.
And it snowballed.
And it snowballed, and it became a really big chapter in this young man's life. A young man who grew up in that community. And that's one of the recurring themes that you see throughout the book is for many of the folks, these are the communities that they grew up in.
Right.
It might be a predominantly white community, or it might be an underserved community of color, where there's a lot of inequities going on within the community anyway. So it's like it really challenges your sense of safety in your community, and sometimes even in your home, just depending on how things play itself out.
Right.
So yeah, it's a really big issue emotionally, and therapists need to be aware of it. Counselors need to be aware of it. Many of the people in the book, they had to reach out for therapeutic supports, even medication. For some, in order to deal with the trauma of what they were experiencing.
And thank you very much for also
Mhm.
mentioning just the next step, which is that people had to say, listen, it's not just a lot. Like, this is more than a lot.
Mhm.
And it's not like I can just talk to my family about it, because sometimes the family may say, don't worry about it.
Mhm.
Or what's the big 3 words? Let it go.
Mhm.
Or thank God you weren't hurt. Or thank you for saying that, and PTSD is real. Or, let's just move on.
Right.
Or go
Mhm.
ahead.
I
Hmm.
have one for you. What did you expect? 4 words. What did you expect?
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all of those responses can be, I'm going to try to use, and I'm not the psychologist here, but
Mhm.
it's almost like they can be, I don't want to say explained away, but I'm sure that there's a rationale for each of those responses.
Mhm.
Maybe there's like going to be like a counseling term for it. I don't know. I don't know. But
Dismissal. It can be a
yeah,
dismissal
right,
of your experience.
right.
Mhm.
And when I started, I wanted to say, and I've posted about this for the past couple of days in order to introduce this topic.
Mhm.
One post I know, I said, it's not your imagination.
Mhm.
You are being followed,
Mhm.
right? You're not
Yes.
making this up.
Mhm.
And when you are, let's just say in mixed company, so there are a couple of conversations that occur, when you're talking to young people, right? When you're talking to children, you can be in mixed company, but if something goes down and people who are black and brown, they know what the next thing out of my mouth is going to be, you're probably going to be the person singled out.
Mhm.
They're going to get to walk away.
Mhm.
You're probably, most likely, almost definitely, not the one who maybe stirred up the sauce,
Mhm.
but the eyes are going to go to the person who has a deeper hue of melanin. Just because there is a social construct that believes that the person who possibly is guilty is the person of the richer hue.
Well, and that has been proven time and time again.
Right.
There are stories of kind of like a lot of young people know this, but I had to be educated to it, that sometimes minority youth will work together. Youth of color and white youth will work together, so that the youth of color will go into the store first. And while they're being watched, the white youth go into the store and they're stealing everything while everyone's watching the youth of color. And then they all leave and then they split up, their bounty. And it in the stories, it bears out over and over again. We have some white allies who tell their stories in the book as well. And a couple of the allies, that's specifically what they're talking about, is how they see their friends of color being treated very differently from how they're treated
Mm-hmm.
when they shop. They specifically deal with that issue without me asking. They specifically deal with that issue. So, and then we have uh, a third white person in the book who tells the story, but he sees it from the perspective of socioeconomics. And maybe because of the demographics where he lives, for whatever reason, he sees it as more socioeconomics. But we know that the link between socioeconomics and race is so strong that we kind of know that if it's socioeconomics, is even more of an issue for the people of color who are dealing with, socioeconomic issues. Yeah.
So now you're triggering me. Here we go. So something that I saw today. I was actually watching a video.
Mhm.
Okay, I was watching a video, and it
Mhm.
was promoting a social and emotional curriculum. Let me leave it at
Mhm.
that. The group of children who were being interviewed, let's say spotlighted, to promote, follow folks, to promote this social and emotional curriculum are part of the Black and brown community. Let's just say that. I was triggered because the child was prompted to say, we are from X community. We are part of the poorest of the poor in America. Those of you who know me, you know what my face looked like. I did one of these. Excuse me?
Mhm.
The people who I was in the room with just said, what's the matter? I had to rear back and just say, I know I didn't just hear what I said. Did you just hear what somebody set these young people up to say that out of their mouth, whether or not they are aware of their socioeconomic status.
Mhm.
You have had them, quote unquote, follow a bit of a script because no young person under the age of
Mhm.
8
Mhm.
says
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
because they know that. Because
Mhm.
most of us in Black and brown communities,
Mhm.
quote unquote, did not know that we were poor until we
Mhm.
got to a different space and
Mhm.
somebody said, oh, I have this and this is the norm. And you're just like,
Mhm.
I didn't
Mhm.
have that, but we were good.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
I had a place to
Mhm.
sleep. It may not have been an
Mhm.
8-bedroom house, but
Mhm.
I had
Mhm.
love, I had food,
Right.
my
Right.
family.
Right. Right.
And I was so moved by that. So, your
Mhm.
situation of 26 years ago moved you to write this book.
Mhm.
Y'all know I'm coming out of
All right. Okay.
because I'm
Okay.
always moved about how children and young people, for the
Mhm.
purpose of a dollar,
Mhm.
can be
Mhm.
exploited
Mhm.
to say certain things, to sell certain
Yes.
things for the greater good. But
Mhm.
now that word and that phrase is in that child's head,
Mhm.
and they're going to walk around like, oh, yeah, look, I was in this video. Look, I was helping to sell this thing. But what
Mhm.
were you saying? Do you know
Mhm.
what you were saying?
Mhm. Mhm.
We'll move on.
Okay.
But this is
And
about
and
the
and who and who
marginalization,
def-
right? Go ahead.
and who defines what poor is? I understand what you're saying, and that's a coming from a deficit model, and we're missing all of the richness of the communities as well, even though the system has set many communities up for poverty and generational poverty at that. But again, if anyway, yeah, that you could spend a long time on that one. Yes, yes,
Right.
yes. And
I
and
often
and something let you know that that wasn't coming genuinely from that child. At
right, it
least
was
that's what you felt.
right.
Mhm.
Oh, no, it was too rehearsed. Because again,
Yeah.
no
Mhm.
young person, even let's say under
Mhm.
the age of 12, 13, once
Mhm.
let's just say what is it in French? L'âge de raison, the age of reason,
Mhm.
which is about 7 or 8,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
remember something from child development.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
anyway, but,
stop.
like, about 7 or 8, like, they sort
Mhm.
of see things and they're able to articulate certain things, but nobody
Mhm.
comes out of their mouth and says that, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Who told you
Mhm.
to say that? What
Mhm.
person? What director?" Let's move on. But this
Okay.
is all about marginalized bodies. It's about
Yeah.
the affect of what consumer practices
Mhm.
say
Mhm.
about who again, all money is supposed to be green, but as
Mhm.
I said, black and brown money gets profiled, it gets targeted, not
Mhm.
just with Oprah Winfrey, but here,
Mhm.
okay, if we're going to talk about the hundreds and thousands of names that we've just heard echoed
Mhm.
over the last couple of weeks, months, and years,
Mhm.
and I can't name all of them because I
Right.
honestly, it's too
Mhm.
traumatic. I have blocked a
Mhm.
lot of them out
Right.
because I do not care. But what am I trying to do? Preserve.
And we have to self care. And I also want to say that black and brown dollars are also exploited.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Oh,
know. Mhm.
let's okay. One of my other favorite topics to talk about is food.
Mm.
So let's talk about um, food deserts,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Now, we will not
Mhm.
name the products, not in this
Mhm.
conversation, but there
Mhm.
are certain beverages. Now, if people want
Mhm.
to drop them in the comments, y'all can drop them in
Mhm.
the comments. That's fine.
Mhm. Mhm.
There are certain products that are only sold in certain communities.
Yes. Certain billboards you'll only see in certain communities.
Precisely.
Certain, I mean, and these products oftentimes are the least healthy products. Um, you know, and then you can't walk to a grocery store. There are none, you know, in some communities. I mean, that's a big concern, especially when we look at um, lifespan health disparities,
Right.
health disparities across the lifespan. It's a big issue, and that didn't happen by accident. There's some systemic things that are going on. It's not your neighbor's fault that there's no grocery store that you can walk to. It's not your fault. Who planned that out? Who created that? Where did that come from? But that's a whole nother topic. I mean, I touch on those things in the book, but that could be a book all in itself, and has been a book all in itself.
Precisely.
There are books out there on this.
Right.
Yes,
And
you know.
so as we are sort of shifting to winding this down, even though it really feels like
Mm,
we just got started, we're going to talk about one more vignette or one more
mhm,
interview in the book and the ramifications of that and how it will. And again, this is one of those very sensitive topics, and so this next part of the conversation will touch the hearts and the minds of many, many, many people. It will bring back a lot of memories for people because those memories are not very in the long past. They are kind of recent, which is also very sad. But we do want to address some how not how we move past because we can't move past, but how we move to the next step. And some of the next steps would be recommendations and how the impact of retail racism, how the impact of let me get the word right, consumer. Is it consumer? What's CRP? Consumer.
cons-
I just had it. Wait here.
retail racism. Um.
CRP, consumer racial profiling. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Consumer
Mhm.
racial profiling. Somebody type that
Okay.
in the chat. Consumer racial
Okay.
profiling and then
Mhm.
hashtag CRP. Consumer
Okay.
racial profiling. And there's a really great article if you look up. It's called Consumer Racial Profiling and Perceived Victimization, a
Mhm.
phone survey of Philadelphia area residents. I read that as well. And in
Mhm.
essence, the study says that um, more people who were Black and brown, according to this phone survey, did recognize that they had been
Mhm.
racially profiled in terms of
Mhm.
their consumer dollars, and the people with more education
Uh-oh. You frozen. You froze. I'm sorry. You froze.
Okay, I think I'm back.
Were okay. But I think you were saying that people with more education were able to perceive it more, correct? Okay. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, I
right.
think I talk about that study in the book. And in a study of New Yorkers, 80%
Yeah,
felt that they had been racially profiled while shopping. Um, yeah, that's a,
yeah. It's
you
something that's
know,
so critical.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, you're going in and out,
Let me.
unfortunately. I'm so sorry. You're going in and out. I
Okay,
don't know if that's happening for everybody, but you're freezing from my point of view. But I'm hanging in there.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. But if I don't
Hang in
respond,
there. Hang in
it
there.
just means I didn't hear you if I don't respond. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so let me know if you can hear me now.
I hear you right now. Hmm.
Okay, got it. So I do think that there's a delay. I think there's like maybe a 2-second delay because I hear
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Okay. So one of the things that I believe comes out of racial profiling pertaining to consumerism or retail racism is that there is a surge of entrepreneurship
Hmm.
in Black and Brown communities.
Hmm.
Having this disparity of being mistreated in public consumer spaces
Hmm.
has promulgated Black and Brown people to start their own businesses, grow their own businesses in order to try to not only keep money in the community, but to reduce the amount of trauma that
Hmm.
people feel when they shop in other spaces.
Right. That's definitely one of the strategies that the interviewees talked about is avoiding the consumer marketplace. Um, and studies show that Black and Brown people are more likely to do online shopping. I don't know if it's because of the consumer racism, but for whatever reason, we're more likely to utilize online shopping services. And I say in the book that I think it could be related to the negative experiences that we, often have in the consumer marketplace. So yes, I would imagine too that many of the Black businesses now that we're able to um, connect with through online, may also be a response to that. To these negative experiences. So you're right. And there's also Shop Black movements that are happening. So, some marketers and retailers might be some of the mainstream marketers and retailers might be trying to respond to that. Um,
Mhm.
and, uh, but some are doing better than others, obviously.
Yeah.
But yes, there's definitely movements, and everything from clothes to jewelry to swimming caps to
Right,
we could go on and on, hair oils, and so
right.
forth. Yeah,
Everything in like right, everything in like the major brands to
yes,
minor brands, whether they be for let's say the general public. I mean, there's even people
right.
who are designing or who have designed toilet paper and
Yes,
clothing or
yes,
laundry detergent. And then
yes,
we have
yes,
franchises that are being now run
right,
by by Black and Brown people.
right,
And then we have
right,
restaurants. There's just like a plethora of things that, as they would say, like we were sick and tired of being sick and tired of being treated
right,
like this. Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. That was
right,
about it
right.
as well, right? The pizza
Absolutely.
shop.
That was,
Hey,
yes, that was all about retail racism. Um, Absolutely. And even businesses like counseling services, where Black professionals, attorney offices, law firms, I should say, and so
Medical
forth, real
professionals.
estate, medical professionals, real estate companies, and so forth. I mean, we could go on and on and on. So, there is this movement for many reasons, but the treatment that we experience in the consumer marketplace is, I'm sure, a factor in many cases.
And so we definitely have to pay homage to Black Wall Street. We have to pay
Yes.
homage to
Oh,
Tulsa.
yes.
We have to pay homage
Yes.
to all of those Black and brown communities across, and I'm speaking just
Yes.
of the United States,
Rosewood.
like
Rosewood. Yes.
Rosewood.
Mhm.
We have to say their names that as a
Mhm.
result of consumer
Mhm.
marketplace
Yes.
mistreatment, whether it be
Yes.
100 years ago or
Yes.
50 years ago or
Mhm.
35 years ago,
Yes.
that yes, that we have said, no problem, we'll just have
Mhm.
our own spaces. So
Mhm.
let's just pop into this last conversation,
Okay.
the last story. And the last story
Okay.
is titled, My DNA Remembers Even if my conscious mind doesn't. And
Mhm.
I'll frame it. So Dr. Dunlap goes to let's say a holiday party or a holiday, like a Halloween spook festival
Yeah.
in her,
Yeah. Like a harvest festival.
like a harvest festival, in
Mhm.
her local community.
Not
And
not here in
yeah,
Connecticut
right,
while I was visiting down south. Mhm.
right. And so she goes with her a young family member, a young child, and goes to see some of the events and kind of like the fun stuff. But there was one particular part of this event that literally brought back memories. And let me parenthetically say, before we drop the big elephant in the room, that if it was someone who was of color, someone who was Black or brown, and they participated in the coordination or the organization of that event, that would have been the first thing on the list, that's a
Mhm.
no-no. That's not gonna
Mhm.
happen. And
Mhm.
especially because it was in the South, it would have been a
Mhm.
big no-no.
Mhm.
Now, what was seen, Dr. Dunlap, you can add the final statement.
Okay, so my child and I were walking down they had a little fright trail, and there was the little ghouls, popping out, and the little, uh, the hand that comes out and scares you, and just the typical kind of things you might see. And we were, jumping around, and so forth. Then towards the end, we come to one that is literally a lynching scene. Okay. It's literally a lynching scene. And it looked like it would have been the lynching of a white person, but who cares? It's a lynching scene. Who wants to see anybody lynched of any race or ethnicity or color? Who wants to see that? So it's this lynching scene where this person is being dropped from this tree with this rope around their neck. I have a photograph in the book that
In
I
the book,
actually took of this. And the first thing I did was try to protect my child. I didn't want my child seeing this level of violence. Okay. Or really any violence at all. It was little fun little frights, but not anything you would call violent. But this was violent. And the person controlling the ropes seemed to be having a jolly good time dropping this person and lifting this effigy, this, for lack of a better word, this like a dummy, a mannequin type thing, dropping it, and the thing, had that horrible
jerking.
way
Yeah.
of looking, yes, and jerking, and so it looked very lifelike, and I literally felt sick So I'm trying to protect my child. I'm trying to not get sick. I felt dizzy. I felt my stomach felt upset. I began to stumble, just trying to find my way, my child and I, out of that thing. And right away I took my child back to where we were staying and tried to figure out what I should do. So I went back up there to complain. And they told me, you shouldn't be upset. It's a white person. This is what white people told me. The organizers, why are you upset? It's a white person. I mean, that's the kind of thing that makes you go, what? Like, are you serious? Do you really think that I have a level of immorality that I would think it's okay because it's a person of this background or that background or that background? Really? Like, I mean, I'm like, so I talk about that in that memory. It was actually a journal entry that I made back at that time where I was just so upset. And by that situation and by the handling of it, saying things like it's a white person. Like, so someone told themselves this is going to be okay to do because this is a white person that we're
Right.
lynching. Not okay. All right. So I made such a fuss that they shut that trail down for the rest of the night. So yeah, I wasn't having it. I wasn't going for it. Um, I shouldn't have to be that upset. And it was a generational, I call it DNA, like it was like something that got
Yeah.
passed down from somebody who experienced this. And that's what it felt like. Like I've
Yeah.
experienced this before. I've seen this before,
Right.
so it was very traumatic for me. I'm
Right.
sorry. I
And
can see you're
so,
trying to say something.
yeah,
Mhm.
quite all right. I thank you so much, first of all, for sharing that.
Mhm.
Let me be very open and say to even repeat that story
Mhm.
sent a chill, I'm sure, up your spine.
Mhm.
It sent a chill up my spine when I read
Mhm.
it. And not only when I
Mhm.
read it, but when I saw the picture in the book,
Mhm. Mhm.
it
Right.
didn't even it didn't even appear to me that the person's, let's say, color, it was just the frame and the
Mhm.
image. I was like, wait,
Yes.
what?
Yes. And that's what happens when people are not well educated, when people don't get a good diverse education about history, about the intergenerational impact of our American history and so forth, even our world history. These are the kind of things that happen, and people are like, well, why is everybody upset? I also would like folks to know, if I may, Doriel, I would like
Please.
folks to know that my book is not like this book of just people bleeding out all these horrible stories. There is humor, there is creativity, the creativity that people use for dealing with the instances that they experience, how they educate us on how we can handle these experiences. So there's the tough parts, but there's also the parts where you see the creativity, you see the humor that people use, you see how people turn it around and use it as a teaching instrument, how they socialize their family and their children and so forth. So it is a book, I believe, of empowerment. It's not a book of victimization. It includes the victimization, but it also includes the empowerment that comes from people who are very creative and very intelligent people, which is, who we are as a people. Um, so that oftentimes there's people who don't know that, but if you read books like this,
you will begin to really understand the level of intelligence and creativity that people have, the things that we know that people think we don't know, the
Right.
meanings of the things that we say that people may not realize that they have been put in check, and they may not understand. Oh, wow, that was me being put in check when they said that.
Yeah.
Like the first story, Reverend Alton. How he
Yes.
put someone in check so beautifully. Um,
I love
yeah,
that. In essence, so
yeah,
just
yeah.
a little snippet. So it's a pastor. He goes into a store. It's a store that he's gone into a
Mhm.
number of times, and
But
somebody
please
quote
don't
unquote.
tell too much now. Don't tell too
No,
much.
but so I'll just say for me,
It's a
I'm in
it's
the
a
store today.
360, huh?
Yes, I'm in
It's a
the store
300.
today. I'm in Target. Somebody's following me, and I wanted, if I saw him around that next corner, I would have just said, "If you really want to follow me, like, do a better job.
Could you do a better job?
Do a
Like,
better
really? Like,
job."
I do see you. I do see you following me, you know, and you don't know where you might meet me in the future,
Right.
so like you might want to, hone up on your following people around skills, like
That was a funny story. That was a funny story. So, folks, it is like I said, we just got started, and it's kind of time to wrap up. I really am so thankful and blessed that you were willing to share your book. Again, the text is called "Retail Racism: Shopping While
yeah,
Black and
oh,
Brown in
I have
America."
it right here. I have it
Yes.
right here.
Oh
And
my
does
God.
this photo rock? I want to acknowledge Miss Tila Avery, a 17-year-old. She was 17 when she developed this photograph. She was taking a photography course in high school. She was a senior in high school when she created this picture. I asked her to create the Harriet Tubman $20 bill for me, which I was thinking I wanted for the cover, because some many of us know we have some history going on about that Harriet Tubman $20 bill. I can't find it in the book right now,
Right.
but she did a beautiful job with the $20 Harriet Tubman book. But then she came up with this and this, and I was
I
so in
love it.
love with the cover. So Tila, great job. Tila is now at Spelman University getting her education. She's a sophomore now, but she was 17 when she did this, when she came up with this. And I told the publishers, is these pictures or or there's no book, and they were like, we agree,
Or not.
that picture rocks, so they agreed with me. There was no argument there.
Excellent. Excellent.
So thank you for
I
letting me share that with you. Our teenagers rock.
do want to
I can't hear you. Can't hear you. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
how about now? Okay.
Okay, I
Hold
think
now.
I can hear you now.
Okay.
No,
Good, good, good.
maybe I can. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Good.
I hear you.
So good. Before we get shut down again, because
Okay.
maybe they're thinking that we're not, we shouldn't be doing this. So I just want to say thank you to again, the Connecticut College folks. We see you. Thank you so
Hey,
much for saying,
camels.
that's right, for saying
Hey,
PTSD
camels.
is real.
To
That's
my
right.
students, if any of my or former students, our
That's right.
alums.
That's right.
Okay.
And some
I
of
have
your colleagues are in the building. Some of your colleagues.
okay. Okay now.
Excellent. So thank you so much for putting in consumer racial profiling, CRP. Um, the building of businesses by Black people, Black and Brown people, are for to avoid the dealing with the gaze of being in business
And
with
that's
other people.
gaze. GAZE.
Right.
Gaze.
The
Uh-huh.
gaze, right. And thank you for typing in DNA
Visual gaze.
remembers. And yes, our students rock. So
Yes.
I want to say thank you. This is episode 9 of A New Class is in Session. This has been the Digital Couch. We have had Dr. Michelle
Yeah.
Peaches
Can,
Dunlap.
can Jazzy say hi too?
Oh,
Bye. She's
and
been so patient. She's been trying to get up here. Okay. You did well. You did well, baby. I hope you
her
don't mind.
fur
She's been
baby.
trying.
That's fine. Jesse's part of the family.
Yes.
Jesse's a part of the family. Oh
My
my goodness.
students know this too.
Thank you so much. We
Thank
do
you for
appreciate
having me.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your support. Thank you so much,
So yeah,
Dorielle. All
please,
these years. Thank
that's
you.
right. Pick up the
Okay.
book, have a conversation with
Oh, yeah. And here
people.
it is again.
Yes, please. I actually want to get a snippet of this. Beautiful. Thank you. Excellent. Pick up the book, share it with someone, recommend it to colleges and
Yeah.
universities,
Yeah.
recommend it to community colleges. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Recommend it to anybody, everybody. Maybe
Yeah.
even share it with people who want to have these critical conversations about how are we moving through? How are we moving to the next
Yeah.
step? Why do we have Black businesses? It's a great text to share so that we can move to the next step, whatever the next step is. But my
Mhm.
last question to give to everybody, and you answer it based on your own family, your own culture, your own interaction with how you move in society and how you spend your money and where you spend your money, whether you walk in a store or you go online. At what point are you going to share this story or stories like these with your children and your grandchildren and young people in your life? We cannot wait for them to be accosted by somebody in the street, in the store,
Mhm.
or what have you. And then it's like, but the other
Right.
part is, how early do we do that to take away that
Right.
innocence?
And are you asking me that, or
I'm
are you
actually
asking us all to think about that? Yeah.
right. I'm just putting it out there because
Yeah.
that literally is an entire chapter.
It's in the book. It's talked about a lot, and it depends on a lot of things: the maturity of the child,
Yeah,
how they're moving in the community, what kind of community.
right.
So there's many ways that could be answered, and I'm sure everybody is thinking about that and coming up with a different answer. But that's part of what the book talks about, is all of the effort that people put into trying to socialize their children for this, for the fact that these experiences can possibly happen. Not wanting them to be paranoid, but to
Correct.
just be prepared if something does happen. Also want to let you know the book is available from the publisher, who is Roman and Littlefield. That's ROWMAN and Littlefield. If you Google that and retail racism, the book will come up. It's also available on Amazon. So it's available. They are printing more copies. It's on back order, but it is available, and they're moving very quickly to get the copies done. And it's a book for everybody. I tried to write it in a way that it would be suitable for the classroom, for the boardroom, and for the community. So I want you to know that.
Excellent. So I
Thank
have
you.
also put the publisher in the chat. It's on the business and the YouTube page, and the
Thank you.
actual YouTube link for Amazon will be in the subject title on all the platforms once we
Thank
finish this
you.
conversation.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much. Thank you, Dorielle. It's been a
Excellent.
pleasure. And again, thank you everyone for your support, and a special hello to any of my past or present students. Okay, bye-bye.
Wonderful.
Thank
Have a
you
good
again.
night.
Bye-bye.